I love the grit and the sort of the can-do filmmaking spirit of the 80s.
All right. Well, let's talk about Clown in the Cornfield. I'm so excited today to be speaking with Eli Craig, the co-writer and director of Clown in the Cornfield. Eli, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great being with you.
Honestly, this movie is so much fun. It really is a blast. It's got the horror aspects. It's funny in parts. Just it's just a wild ride. Where did it come from? Why did you want to tell this story?
Well, it's based on Adam Caesar's book that is Clown in a Cornfield. And when I read the title of the book, I thought, well, this was sort of right up my alley. There's something grabby about the title. It feels like some sort of Stephen King mashup kind of joke. And I love that and then elevating it. It feels maybe even going into the film, I try to craft an opening sequence in films. It feels a little tropey and it feels kind of jokey. And you get into it with some laughs and then it gets into a more serious level. And then maybe people are thinking, well, maybe this is a little more serious movie. And then it gets pretty wild and chaotic and violent and gory. And then we get back to some pretty serious themes. And I love that it keeps upending expectations. And I was looking for something to kind of play into my action thriller horror part of me and yet keep a little bit of the comedy that I love as well. And this just seemed like the right place to do it.
It absolutely is, and it's got all those elements. And I mean, it's interesting to see a scene that takes itself seriously and then can undercut it and not lose that, like the squeaky
Mm,
shoes. It draws a laugh, but you're still on the ride. You know what I mean? It never
yeah.
derails.
Yeah, it's really hard to do that. And I think that challenge is what attracts me to it. I've seen so many films that kind of lose the edge because the comedy gets in the way. And I've seen films that just take themselves so seriously that I start to roll my eyes like, oh, come on. Like especially in horror, sometimes it's just, life is not like that to me. Like some of the darkest times I've ever been through. Um, I used to work as a paramedic and an EMT, and I used to work with life and death, and I had people die around me. And I'll tell you what, if you saw us afterward, where you're just laughing about the intensity of it, you're venting and in an emotional way with laughter and tears and all these things. And if people saw you, they think you're a psychopath. But in reality, it's very human nature to have all this buildup of tension and horror and then have a release valve for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would love to know too. You said it was based on Adam Caesar, if I'm saying his name properly.
Mhm.
His book. What are his thoughts on this? Because I know it can be a real challenge. We've heard stories in the past of Stephen King saying, "Well, I didn't like how this was
Ah,
my book brought to life." What
yeah.
was it like working with him?
Oh, Adam will never talk to me again. No, I'm actually, we're such good friends now. It's been such a pleasure to really get to know him. I spoke with him before going into production, and I talked to him about what I wanted to do with it, and we kind of confirmed that our goals were the same, right? I did say I was going to bring a little more comedy and levity to it. His book is actually quite serious, surprisingly, and I think with the title, I thought for a movie, it needed to not take itself 100% seriously. Um, and he agreed, and we ended up having this interesting balance of like my tone and his darker tone. And I mean, he's a huge fan, and that means the world to me. And it also means the world to me when people have read the books and are huge fans and also love the movie. And they kind of inform each other. Like you could do either in either direction. You can read the book first and go see the movie and feel like you're getting a new experience, or you could watch the movie and go back to the book and just get a little deeper understanding of the characters and themes.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool. I haven't read the book, obviously, but yeah, it would be interesting to hold them up with each other to see them complement each other.
Yeah, they really inform each other, and so it's a give and take. But Adam's stoked that he even says there's certain elements that my reveals where I reveal certain things, he wishes he had done. And so I really appreciate that.
Well, one of the things I think is so wonderful about this film is its love of 80s slasher films. And it does so out loud. Like this isn't just something that we just, oh, I sort of see that. It talks about its love for the 80s
Mhm.
in this film. And I was wondering, what is it that you love about 80s slashers, and why do you think that we keep coming back to them?
I love the grit and the sort of the can-do filmmaking spirit of the 80s. These weren't people that were supported by studios. They weren't like really promoted. It was like it found its own niche because people just went out and did it. And the horror movies of that time give me something to play off because they were all pretty low budget, or very low budget. They have to be very inventive and creative on how they. So whenever I'm dealing with a dauntingly low budget for my ambition, I think about what those filmmakers were doing in the 70s and 80s to make something so confined work. And I have so much just so much respect for that. Because so much of filmmaking, people say, "Oh, what's your vision? How did you envision this?" And so much of the time, it's about concessions in a smart way. It's about making something happen in a way that can save money and work for the budget. It's not always about just some grandiose vision. It's about making things work, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, yeah. I have a genuine appreciation for that era. And I mean,
Mm.
this is I don't want to get off on this topic, but even a film like whether it's the 80s slashers or even a film like Star Wars,
Oh yeah,
they're making this stuff happen, right? Like they're
yeah.
working, they don't have 400 million. They're just sort of bringing
Well,
this to
and
life.
and like Jaws, I do homage like
Yeah.
Jaws in this, and all the things that don't work in Jaws kind of make it a better film. And I just love the story that the shark wasn't working, and like they had to not see the shark more than Steven wanted to. And I always wonder if he had everything he wanted in the movie, if it would have been as good.
Mm.
Sometimes like just the nature of filmmaking is like just hustling and trying to get it done in the best way given the restrictions. And so I don't know. I feel like I live in that world. I feel like every filmmaker has that to a degree. Maybe James Cameron doesn't, but you learn how to deal with what you got and you make the best of it.
Absolutely. But you know what I think though truly makes the film more special is that it has something to say, and there's a real conversation going on here about generational issues, or it seems
Mhm.
to be.
Oh yeah.
I was wondering why that was an important topic for you to embed in a film like this, and why you think it's so hard for people to lean into a changing world.
Well, why it's changing. Okay, it's changing so fast. I mean, I always perspective is everything in a movie, and my point of view is through Gen Z on this, and telling the story through their eyes. It could also be told through the older eyes, which is like change is happening too fast. We need to go back to a time where I just felt more secure and things felt uh, less unsettled. Everything's kind of feels all the time like it's unraveling. When you go back to the pandemic or just our culture, there's nothing to really hang on to. And there's some desire for a old time that may or may not fully exist that just makes you feel like I'm at home. And so there's that mixed with, I think there's this feeling right now in the world that it's me and me alone. I'm the one that matters. And it's the older generation, but it's everybody's kind of just hungry to take what they can from the world, put as much money into their bank, and if it takes away from somebody else, that's just too bad. And a lot of times it's taking away from younger people. And it seems aggressively uncaring about what we leave behind for the future generations. And so there's a lot of reason to be angry. You look at what, and this is getting deep, but I'll just say it to you, like when you look at what older generation kind of did to kids that are trying to make the world a better place, kids like David Hogg or Greta Thunberg,
Mm.
and they're just trying to, I mean, maybe they're not doing everything right. I'm not going to argue like, oh, they have all the right ideas, but with their desires just to make a safer, better world. And then to be just destroyed by an older generation and saying like, no, you know nothing. We're not listening to you. That this film was a little bit about that rage.
I like that because that was one of the things that, in my review, I noted is that it's not that they're doing everything right, it's that they don't want to be told they're doing everything wrong.
Yeah,
And we see that here, this sort of like, stomping down of like, well, it's your fault. It's like, well,
yeah.
it's a really interesting shift here.
Yeah, and you see it with, I mean, I even see it with my sons. My son who was 17 when we made the movie and got shot in the forehead with an arrow and played the DJ.
Oh, okay. Oh,
And
no, no, that's horrible. Oh, in the film,
in the film, it was a
this
lovely.
trauma.
I would not be laughing about it otherwise, but it was an adorable scene, and I got to kill my son with a bow and arrow. And even like I'm always saying to him, get off the phone. But he's so educated. He's one of the most educated 18-year-olds now that I know in the world. And he's so aware of everything that's going on. And so there's a lot of balance that you get older and you want to be like, go outside and play, get off the phone. But you also don't see the benefit and how much knowledge he's actually gaining and how sophisticated the younger generation is. So I do think that because the world's changed so fast, the older generation often is just putting down Gen Z as if they're never going to be able to hold a job or this or that. And I don't think that's true. I think they're a very hopeful generation and very, very accepting of other people.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But there is a very serious question here I have to ask you, Eli.
Uh-oh.
Can
Uh-oh.
you drive stick?
Of course I could drive stick.
You can't.
You can't. Oh my God. It was like I learned to drive stick from probably when I was 12 or 13 years old with my dad's car, and I drove tractors, and I was kind of like a redneck hillbilly myself. So I drove a lot of farm cars and tractors and stuff like that. And then my first car was stick shift, and I miss stick shift, to be honest. It's all gone now. I can't get one.
That's true. That's fair. I know we're running out of time, but just quickly before we go, Eli, I'm just wondering, what do you hope people take away from their time in, I think it's Kettle Springs, if I'm right.
Well, ultimately, it's like a brutal, dark horror suspense ride that is incredibly joyful and uplifting. If you could be all those things at the same time, and I want people to walk out of the theater with a feeling of just being alive, of just my son, who actually my younger son, came and saw it with us for the first time last night in the theater at the Vancouver premiere, and he's 11. And it was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I should bring an 11-year-old. But finally, my older son convinced me he's got to see it. He's ready for it, all this stuff. And he loved it. I couldn't believe he watched the whole thing, he loved it, and was trembling, sometimes scared, and he was calling out certain things. But at the end of it, he said, I feel free, Dad. I've never felt so free. And it gave him a sense of freedom. And I love that. If you can walk out of a film and feel like you're ready to tackle something that maybe you didn't feel like doing before, then that's just perfect for me.
I really appreciate that, honestly, Eli. I have an 11 and a 15-year-old, or a 10 and a 15-year-old myself.
Well,
Uh,
take him to the theater. He's gonna love
there it is. There it is. You probably will.
it.
Honestly, thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great talking to you.
Great talking to you too. Have a great day.
You too.